The stars had always been quiet at the edge of Empire space, out past the trade rings, beyond the mineral moons and diplomatic zones. There was only the void, dark, endless, and still. For centuries, the Galactic Empire had ruled it all without contest. Every species knew their place. Every ship had a registration, every world was mapped, every corner of the galaxy monitored. Order, that's what they called it. So when the first alert came through from a remote listening post on the fringe of the Kelon expanse, it was dismissed as a sensor glitch. Blip on the screen. Happens all the time. Probably a passing asteroid, except asteroids didn't travel at FTL speeds. And they sure as hell didn't carry an Earth-class heat signature. Commander Thal, we're getting gravimetric distortion along the outer grid. Something big just dropped out of slipspace. Commander Thal clicked his tongue in mild irritation. Another false alarm. The listening posts had been acting strange ever since that minor solar flare storm last cycle. He adjusted his neural visor and stared at the tactical overlay. It took him 2 seconds to realize this wasn't a false alarm. A ship was there, large, armed, and unregistered. ID it, he snapped. We're trying. No transponder, no clearance. It's not in the Empire's ship logs. Thal felt a cold knot form in his gut. Every ship was supposed to ping an identifier the moment it entered Imperial territory. This one didn't even try. Where did it come from? Vector. Sir, the approach vector comes from beyond the silent zone. Thal went silent. The silent zone hadn't been spoken of in decades. It was once human territory, before the Purge. Humans, extinct. Zoom and enhance the hull markings. The tech's voice shook. Sir, it's Terran script. Impossible. But there it was, burned into the plating of a massive, black, angular dreadnought. The letters ENS, Nemesis. Beneath it, a line in Old Earth language. We remember. The bridge of the command center was frozen. The room full of aliens, Krell officers, Illyrian data techs, even a high-ranking Varn diplomat, looked at each other, confused, nervous, and suddenly afraid. Humans were supposed to be gone, wiped out by collective agreement after their defiance nearly brought down the Empire. They were too unpredictable, too emotional, too dangerous. The extermination had been swift. Earth was glassed, colonies burned, survivors hunted. Yet here one of their warships was, floating just outside the Empire's border, silent, ominous, and clearly operational. Then it moved. Not closer, not away, just turned, deliberately, like it knew exactly where the command station was. The Empire's protocol was clear. Intercept, hail, investigate, neutralize if unresponsive. Commander Thal sent the standard hail. No reply. He tried again. Nothing. And then, the warship did respond, not with words, but with light. A single pulse from its forward cannon, not aimed to destroy, but to make a point. A warning shot across an empty asteroid belt. The blast shattered a chunk of rock the size of a moon. Silence returned. But the message was clear. We are here. We are watching. And we are armed. Empire High Command was alerted within minutes. The Emperor's Council was convened. Every sector within 50 light-years went to red alert. No one understood how the humans had survived. No one knew what they wanted. But the rumors had already begun to spread. Across colonies and core worlds, in back-alley bars and imperial palaces, people whispered the same words. The humans are back. And this time, they hadn't come to talk. The Nemesis drifted just inside the border of the Kelon expanse, silent as the grave it was once meant to be. Empire ships surrounded it in a loose formation, careful not to provoke but ready to strike. None dared close the gap. Inside the Empire's Strategic War Council, voices clashed like blades. "Launch a full assault," snarled Admiral Craven, his tendrils twitching with rage. One ship dares challenge the Empire, we burn it out of the stars. And risk a second war with a species we thought extinct? Snapped Grand Inquisitor Vel, a tall, pale Illyrian with eyes like frozen mercury. We don't know what else is out there. If one ship survived, others may have. This could be a trap. Emperor Zel's voice cut through the noise like a dagger. Send a message to the Nemesis, one last time. If it refuses again, we disable it. No destruction. We want the crew alive. The room went silent. Everyone knew what the Emperor was thinking. Knowledge, interrogation, secrets that might shatter the Empire's carefully maintained lie that humanity was no more. On board the Nemesis, Captain Eli Mercer stood at the helm. One man, one ship, a legend thought dead. His face was weathered from years in deep space. His eyes? Hollow. They'd seen too much. Too many losses. Too many betrayals. He adjusted a dial on the old Terran interface. Everything was analog. No Empire tech. No AI. Just muscle memory and scars. He didn't answer their hails because he didn't need to. They'd hear him soon enough. Behind him, in a small cryo chamber, 7 pods lined the wall. Each held a survivor. Not soldiers, not diplomats, but ghosts of a forgotten resistance. Mercer ran his hand across the dusty control panel, brushing past a cracked photo, his wife and daughter smiling on New Terra before the Empire came. Gone. Murdered. No one had ever paid for it. Until now. He whispered to himself, the words more ritual than thought. They thought they buried us, but they didn't know we were seeds. The Nemesis wasn't just a warship. It was a statement, a promise, a reckoning wrapped in steel and silence. Back in the Empire fleet, the flagship Volthra finally dared to move in. The commander's voice came over an open channel, artificially calm. Unidentified vessel. This is your final warning. Identify yourself and submit for boarding. Failure to comply will be considered an act of war. The Nemesis remained still. Then its engines flared, blue fire rippling out like the breath of a sleeping giant stirring awake. A single message pinged across all frequencies. No voice, just text. You tried to erase us. We remember. The Volthra locked weapons. Before they could fire, the Nemesis moved. Not away. Straight through them. In less than 20 seconds, it cut the flagship in half with a precise cannon burst to the core reactor, then jumped to slipspace before the fleet could react. No survivors on the Volthra, just wreckage. Empire systems across the sector were now alive with chaos, panic, uncertainty, and in the ashes of the destroyed command ship, a message pod drifted, untouched by the blast. Inside, a single data crystal. It contained video footage of the Purge. Raw, unfiltered war crimes committed by the Empire against humanity. Civilians lined up and executed. Colonies sterilized. Children burned alive. The message was clear. The Nemesis had receipts. And it wasn't just here to make noise. It was here to burn the lie of the Empire to the ground. Across the capital world of Zir, beneath the shimmering crystal spires and golden walkways of the Empire's heart, the news broke like a meteor to the skull. The footage from the message pod had spread faster than anyone could contain it. A tech aboard a salvage crew leaked it to the net before command could lock down the area. Within hours, it was on every back channel, every dark forum, and even found its way into upper caste communication bands. And it hit hard. The younger generations, those raised under the official narrative that humanity had waged a senseless war and had to be eliminated, stared at the footage in shock. Some cried. Others refused to believe it. But those with any sense of history knew the truth had finally clawed its way to the surface. In the middle of this firestorm sat Seren Vale, a junior historian for the Imperial Archives. She'd always suspected the records had been tampered with. Redacted documents, missing war logs, entire Terran systems scrubbed clean like they never existed. Questions had cost her a promotion once. Another time, a friend vanished after probing too deep. She learned to shut her mouth and do her job. Until now. She sat at her console in a quiet wing of the archives, watching the footage again. She'd seen the leaked clip, just 30 seconds long, but she'd also found the raw file before it was removed from internal servers. It was over 2 hours of horror. She stared as the screen showed grainy helmet cam footage from an Empire strike team breaching a Terran civilian shelter. Screaming children, mothers begging, gunfire, flame units, and all of it, logged, documented, tagged like inventory. Not war, not battle, extermination. Her stomach churned, her hands trembled. Then a soft voice spoke behind her. "You're not supposed to have access to that." She spun in her chair. Standing in the doorway was Agent Nyrek, one of the Emperor's internal stability officers. Tall, lean, expressionless. Serene swallowed hard. I was cataloging. It was already flagged." "I know," Nyrek said flatly. He walked in slowly. "And that's the problem." She reached for the shutdown key, but he raised a hand. "Don't bother. If I wanted to silence you, you'd already be gone." "Then why are you here?" He stared at the screen, at the frozen frame of a mother clutching her baby before the flames consumed them. "I saw it too. I've known for a long time, but there was no proof. Now there is." Seren's eyes narrowed. "So what?" "You're here to make me part of it? Keep me quiet?" Nyrek looked tired. Old, despite his youth. "Number, I'm here to ask if you want to bring it down." The words hung heavy in the air. Seren stared at him like he'd gone mad. "You want to destroy the Empire?" "No," he said. "I want to destroy the lie that holds it together." He handed her a small encrypted datapad. "There's a dead channel. Broadcast this through it, unfiltered. Let the galaxy see the truth. Let them decide what comes next." She hesitated, trembling. "If I do this..." "You'll be hunted," he said. "You'll be branded a traitor, and you might die." Seren looked down at the footage again. The burnt bodies, the screaming, the silence that followed. And she nodded. "Then let them come." Far from the archive halls, on the edge of Empire territory, Captain Eli Mercer sat in the dim bridge of the Nemesis, watching the chaos unfold through a private relay. The message had gone viral. Protests erupted in major cities. Border colonies began questioning their loyalty. Even a few Empire captains refused orders to pursue him. He allowed himself the smallest smile. Phase 1 was complete. But it was only the beginning. He turned to the cryo chambers behind him. The pods began to hiss as they warmed. One by one, the last Terran operatives were waking up. Each of them had a mission. Each of them had a score to settle. And together, they'd tear the rot out from the heart of the Empire. Piece by piece. Seren Vale didn't sleep for 3 days. After the broadcast went out through the dead channel, the archive building was placed under immediate lockdown. Officially, it was a data security incident. Unofficially, it was a manhunt. They didn't know it was her yet, but they would. She moved like a ghost through the capital, her identity scrubbed, face disguised with a neural mask. Agent Nyrek had been true to his word. His contacts got her off-world before the first scans even hit the streets. Her transport was old, loud, and smelled like rusted oil, but it got her out of Zir, and into the fire. The outer worlds were boiling. The leak had done more damage than she expected. On Irox Prime, students rioted in the education sectors, waving illegal Terran banners. On Baltranis, a full battalion laid down arms, refusing to obey the chain of command until an investigation was opened. Empire News called it temporary instability. But the people knew. They saw what the Empire had tried to bury, and they weren't going back to sleep. Somewhere in a cold asteroid field, the Nemesis watched it all unfold. Captain Eli Mercer stood at the main terminal, staring at a massive hollow map of the Empire and its trade routes. Entire sectors were now flagged in red. Military lockdowns, curfews, civil unrest. The truth had landed like a bomb in a dry forest. The rest was fire. The cryo chambers had opened, and his crew, what remained of it, was back. Juno Red, former Terran spy master. Cold, analytical, and brilliant. Half her face was synthetic from an old plasma blast, but her mind was sharper than ever. Dre Lorne, once a combat engineer, now an expert in demolitions and sabotage. He had the kind of smile that made people nervous. Aria Song, a linguist and codebreaker. She'd once turned an entire alien planetary defense network against itself, with nothing but a corrupted poem embedded in a transmission. And then there was Thatcher. No rank, no specialty, just a weapon in human skin. Eli didn't even know how old he really was. The man had been grown for war. They'd kept him in stasis too long, and now he barely spoke. But he followed Eli. That was enough. Juno reviewed the latest reports, her voice calm but grim. We've got 3 planetary governors questioning loyalty, 2 of them with access to shipyards. If they flip, we could have supply lines. Eli nodded. And the risk? They'll be dead within the week if we don't move fast. Dre cracked his knuckles. I say we give them a reason to jump early, target their oppressors, shake the tree. Eli turned away from the map and looked at his crew. We aren't here to start a civil war. Thatcher spoke for the first time, low and gravel-throated. We're here to finish one. Juno raised an eyebrow. Same difference. But Eli knew the line. The war against the Empire wasn't just military, it was ideological, cultural. They had to dismantle the myth that the Empire was right, that its genocide was justified. To do that, they had to make symbols bleed. Targets were discussed, plans drawn. The first objective? Ardent Station, a fortified data relay hub used to suppress digital communication across 9 systems. It housed thousands of prisoners, whistleblowers, journalists, scientists who refused to revise records. It was a black site in everything but name. If they freed Ardent, they'd flood the galaxy with minds the Empire feared most. Thinkers. Meanwhile, back in the Empire's inner sanctum, High Chancellor Varric reviewed the damage with a face carved from stone. The humans aren't just alive, he growled to the Emperor. They're organized, coordinated. This nemesis isn't a relic. It's a rallying point. Emperor Zell said nothing for a long moment. His eyes were shut. Then, finally, he spoke. Then we make them monsters again. He leaned forward and issued a single order. Burn a colony. Frame them. Let the galaxy see the blood and believe it came from human hands. The lie would strike again. But this time, the humans were ready. The Nemesis emerged from slipspace like a phantom, its hull cloaked in stolen Illyrian tech, the light of nearby stars barely kissing its blackened frame. Below it floated Ardent Station, a jagged steel spire embedded into the surface of a barren moon. No windows, no exterior signals, just layers upon layers of encrypted shielding and buried suffering. It wasn't just a prison, it was a silence machine. Thousands of dissidents, truth-seekers, and political undesirables had vanished into it. No trial, no communication, no record they'd ever existed. Ardent was where voices went to die. Not today. Inside the war room aboard Nemesis, Juno Red tapped through the latest schematics they'd acquired. We're looking at 3 entry points. The main dock is suicide. Fronts mined and patrolled. She pointed to a smaller, forgotten exhaust conduit. Here, we send in a 3-man team. They plant charges in the central core and trigger an EMP burst before extraction. Should disable lockdown long enough to pull every cell door wide open. Eli leaned over her shoulder. How long do they have before reinforcements arrive? Juno didn't hesitate. 4 minutes, maybe 5. Dre grinned. Plenty of time. Thatcher stood silently, already strapping on his gear. Arya walked past them all, placing a data chip into a wrist drive. I'll piggyback the mainframe. Once I get into their broadcast systems, I'll beam the prisoner logs across every open channel we've got. No more secrets. Eli nodded. Get in, get the truth out, and get our people home. As the dropship launched toward the moon, the Nemesis adjusted orbit, bringing its cannons into silent standby. Inside Ardent Station, the silence was absolute. The guards were bored, unaware, arrogant. After all, who would dare attack the most secure prison in the Empire? Then the lights flickered. The air shifted, and the alarms never had time to scream. Thatcher moved first, an explosion of quiet death in motion. He disabled the first 2 guards with surgical strikes to the throat. Dre followed, placing charges with terrifying precision. Arya trailed behind them, finding the primary uplink terminal and slicing in with practiced ease. In less than 2 minutes, chaos bloomed. Doors slid open. Confused prisoners staggered out, blinking under pale emergency lights. But they didn't stay confused for long. We're here to free you, Arya called out through the station's PA. The Empire lied to you, and now it's time to speak. She hit the transmit key. Across thousands of channels, across star systems once gagged by fear, the prisoners of Ardent began to speak. Names, dates, events that had been wiped from public history, each voice a bullet in the body of the Empire's narrative. Juno monitored the spread from the Nemesis. It's working. We're flooding the net. I've got transmissions bouncing from Baltranis to Cara Vi. But then her expression darkened. We've got incoming. Empire ships, fast and brutal, reinforcements. Extraction window closing, she warned into comms. Dre's voice came back, calm under fire. Charges set. Get us out. The explosion rocked Ardent's core, disabling the gravity net and throwing guards into walls like ragdolls. Prisoners swarmed toward escape pods, half mad with hope. Thatcher carried 2 wounded prisoners across his back without breaking stride. Arya followed close, a laser pistol in one hand and a prisoner's child clinging to her free arm. The dropship swooped in under covering fire. As the last of the team boarded, Dre triggered the final sequence. Ardent Station didn't explode. It cracked. A sound like metal screaming echoed across the moon's surface as the spire caved in from within. It wasn't destroyed. It was opened. A wound in the Empire's mask. But miles away, on a peaceful colony world called Velira, something darker unfolded. A small farming settlement, population barely 900. Children playing in irrigation canals, elders tending crops. They didn't know what Ardent was. They didn't care. They just lived until the ships came. Empire drones descended without warning. Bombs dropped in surgical rhythm. Buildings incinerated. The sky turned black with smoke and screams. The Empire's flagship left a single message behind, broadcast on loop. This atrocity was carried out by the Terran warship Nemesis. This is what humanity brings. A false flag. Manufactured slaughter. And just like that, public sentiment began to fracture. Across neutral systems, the question echoed louder than ever. Are the humans liberators or terrorists? Eli watched the footage in silence. Juno smashed a console. They're twisting it, already. Eli's jaw clenched. We hit them with truth. They hit back with fear. Thatcher stared at the screen with dead eyes and said, "Then we hit harder." The Nemesis drifted silent again, cloaked in the dark side of an uninhabited asteroid. Inside, the air was thick, not from pressure, but from grief. The footage from Valera played on loop across every major news relay. The massacre had been clean, calculated, and falsely tagged with Nemesis's signature. Explosive residue, attack vectors, even the broadcast style. They all matched human specs, because the Empire had used them before. "They killed them just to frame us," Arya whispered, staring at the screen like it might blink and vanish. "Children, farmers, no warning, no resistance." "They needed blood," Juno said bitterly, "and they needed it to look like ours." Captain Mercer stood silent near the viewport, arms folded. Outside, the stars kept spinning, uncaring. "We started winning the story," he finally said, low and cold, "so they wrote a new one in blood." Behind him, Thatcher sat sharpening a blade against a steel plate. The rhythmic scraping filled the room like a metronome of rage. "They think that if they turn the galaxy against us, we'll fall apart," Eli continued. "But they don't understand something." He turned, eyes flaring with that old Terran fury. "They made us in fire. They killed our homes, our families, our peace. What's left is something they can't control." Dre walked in with a tight expression. "We've got another problem." "Of course we do," Juno muttered. "The signal that broadcast Valera's death came from one of ours." The room went quiet. Arya blinked. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying," Dre replied slowly, "someone in our network, someone we trusted, helped them forge the attack." Juno was already pulling up intel. "Give me names." Dre handed her a file. "There's only one who had that level of access and disappeared right before Valera burned." The name lit up on the console. Agent Nyrek. Seren Vale, who had been listening in silence from the corner, stood up too fast. "Number, that's wrong. He risked everything to help me leak the truth. He saved my life." "Or used you to look clean," Juno snapped. "The Empire plays long games, Seren. You think they wouldn't plant a double-deep agent to win the hearts of rebels?" Seren shook her head. "He gave me the transmission codes. He broke protocol. He believed in what we were doing." "Belief's easy to fake," Dre said darkly, "especially when your real orders are sealed beneath 10 levels of lies." Eli raised his hand. "Enough. We find him. We ask him ourselves. If he's clean, we protect him. If he's not..." Thatcher finished Eli's sentence with another slow scrape of his blade. Nyrek wasn't hard to trace. His last known location was an Empire-controlled relay hub on Corda 9, a jungle moon known for its atmospheric interference and spotty comms. Perfect for hiding. Or betrayal. The Nemesis dropped in under a false transponder, posing as a medical relief ship. They hit the relay site fast. No waiting, no negotiation, and what they found wasn't what they expected. Nyrek was there, but not alone. His body was tied to a metal beam, arms broken, face bloodied. Above him, a message burned into the wall in human blood. "We see your little war. This is what we do to traitors. The Empire." He was still alive, barely. Seren dropped to her knees beside him, pulling out medical foam. "Nyrek, what did they do?" His mouth twitched, one eye swollen shut. He gasped out words through cracked teeth. "I didn't betray you. They found me after the broadcast, tried to use me to bait you." Seren clenched his hand. "We thought you were the mole." Nyrek coughed, weak but lucid. "Number, there's someone else, higher up, embedded in your crew." Silence dropped again like a stone. "Inside Nemesis?" Juno said, stunned. "Who?" Nyrek didn't answer. His head slumped back. The monitor on Seren's wrist gave a flat tone. "Dead." Dre slammed his fist against the wall. Seren stared blankly ahead, fury boiling under her skin. They used him, they tortured him, and now they've planted someone in us. Eli turned to his crew. Lock down the ship, every access point, every code. No one gets off or on without my say. Thatcher's blade hissed back into its sheath. The war had changed again. The Nemesis had a mole, and the Empire was no longer just reacting. They were hunting. The Nemesis felt colder. Not in temperature, but in trust. It crept into the corners of every corridor, into the conversations that stopped just a second too soon, into every glance that lingered just a little too long. The walls hadn't changed, but the people inside them had. There was a traitor among them. Captain Eli Mercer paced the command deck like a man walking the edge of a cliff. His mind turned over every face, every favor, every moment since they'd come out of stasis. Who could it be? Draylorn leaned against a bulkhead, arms crossed, watching everyone. Could be Arya, he said bluntly. She's got the best access. She's been inside every system on this ship. She's the one who exposed Ardent Station to the galaxy, Juno snapped back. Why the hell would she burn the Empire and then feed them intel? Because that's exactly what a good mole does, Dre said, cool and calm. Earn our trust, do something big, then wait for the real play. Arya stood at the far end of the room, arms shaking. You think I'd let them kill those prisoners? Burn Valira? You think I'd be part of that? Seren tried to step in. We don't know anything yet. Eli, tell them. This isn't the way. But Eli didn't speak. His eyes were fixed on Arya, not with accusation, but with weight. She noticed. You too? Eli finally answered. I trust you, Arya, but trust doesn't clear you anymore. Not now. The silence stretched until it snapped. Thatcher, who had said nothing since Quarter 9, turned and left the room. No one stopped him. The investigation was brutal. Logs were pulled. Private comms dissected. Every meal, every movement since waking from stasis was reanalyzed. And slowly, the evidence started pointing. Not at Arya, but at Dre. It was small things at first. Routing keys that didn't match his assigned access. A data patch signed off under his login during the exact time the Valira attack code was forged. A hidden relay pinged from his quarters 4 days earlier, encrypted in an old Terran dialect. Juno didn't want to believe it. She'd fought with Dre for years before the Purge. Trusted him with her life. But the data didn't lie. Eli called a full crew meeting in the loading bay. Neutral ground. He didn't want it to happen like this, but there was no other way. Dre, Eli said, calm but grim, you have anything to say before I lock your systems down? Dre looked around at his friends. The people who had fought beside him, bled beside him. He shook his head. Then smiled. It wasn't a guilty smile. It was pity. You think I sold you out? He said, almost laughing. You think I'd trade Terran blood for a seat at the Empire's table? We have the logs, Dre, Juno said. You were the only one with access, the only one unaccounted for when the codes were broadcast. That's because I was cleaning up his mess, Dre snapped, and pointed, straight at Thatcher, who had just re-entered the room. He's not who you think he is, Dre continued. That man's not just a soldier, he's a sleeper. He was made by the Empire, engineered, programmed, buried in our ranks to wake up when the time came. Thatcher didn't flinch, didn't blink. You have proof? Eli asked. I have his neural suppressor, Dre said, pulling a device from his jacket. It was buried in the medbay database. He removed it 5 days ago. Thatcher stepped forward, slow and calm. Arya backed away. He's lying, right? Thatcher, say something. Thatcher didn't. Instead, he raised his eyes to Eli, voice colder than space. I woke up 5 days ago, and I've been fighting myself every second since. The truth hit like a gunshot. "You were programmed?" Seren whispered. Thatcher nodded. "I didn't know, not at first. But when Valira burned, I started remembering. Orders, triggers. I tried to resist. But it was there, like a ghost in my head." He looked at Dre. "You found out. You were trying to stop me. But you couldn't tell them." Dre's voice was full of quiet fury. "I didn't sell us out. I was trying to save us." Eli's heart cracked. "Then why didn't you say something?" "Because," Dre said, "I didn't know who else might be compromised." And that's when it happened. Thatcher lunged. Fast. Too fast. Eli drew his pistol, but he was already too late. Dre shoved Seren aside and took the blade straight to the ribs. Deep. Lethal. The bay filled with shouts. Arya fired. Juno tackled Thatcher. Eli pinned him with a stun round to the neck. Thatcher collapsed, breathing heavy, twitching, his mind breaking apart. Dre slumped to the floor, blood soaking his shirt, his face pale. Eli dropped beside him. "No, no, no, stay with me." Dre smiled weakly, blood on his teeth. "Told you I wasn't the mole." And just like that, he was gone. They sedated Thatcher and locked him in a cryo cell. He didn't resist. As he drifted off, he whispered, "Make me human again." But no one knew if that was even possible. Not after what the Empire had done to him. The galaxy was watching. They always had been. Silently. Cautiously. But now their eyes were wide open. Open because the truth had bled out into the stars. Open because the lies could no longer hold their shape. Footage of Ardent Station's liberation. Testimonies from the freed prisoners. Documents recovered from black sites. And most damning of all, recordings of the Empire's false flag massacre at Valira, leaked directly from the cryo chamber of the Nemesis's own captive. Thatcher. Captain Eli Mercer stood before a wall of flickering holographic faces. Representatives from neutral systems, rebel enclaves, and underground resistance networks. A full galactic council had refused to hear them, so they built their own. "This is not a war of borders," Eli told them. "It's a war for memory. The Empire built its power on lies, on silencing entire species, on erasing humanity and rewriting our story as one of savagery and hate." He paced the bridge of the Nemesis, every step heavy. "Well, we're done being quiet, and we're done asking." A low murmur echoed from the channels, but more than a few nodded. More than a few finally saw the Empire for what it was. Eli turned to Juno, who now wore Dre's old patch on her shoulder. She was harder now, quieter too, but she hadn't broken. "Status? All systems ready," she said. "The final transmission is queued. Once we launch, it'll ping every major media core in the central Empire grid." "And Arya?" Arya's voice crackled through the comms. "Already tapped into the Emperor's personal relay. Once the transmission begins, his lies go live, to every screen in the core worlds. He'll either respond, or the people will see him for the coward he is." Eli nodded, and then, for the first time in days, he smiled. "Let's tear down a god." The Nemesis dropped from slipspace into high orbit above Zir, the Empire's capital world. Alarms shrieked. Defense platforms lit up across the upper atmosphere. Empire warships scrambled to intercept, and the Nemesis just hovered there, alone, outnumbered, outgunned, unyielding. The Empire hailed them instantly. "Captain Mercer," came Emperor Zell's voice, crackling with synthetic calm. "You stand alone above my world, waving your little truth like a flag. What exactly do you think this accomplishes?" Eli stared into the void beyond the glass. "I don't need to destroy your ships," he replied. "I just need to make you speak, on record, on broadcast." The Emperor didn't answer, but Eli continued. "I have every file, every massacre, the full footage of Valira, including the forgeries. I have your genetic seal on extermination orders from Earth. This isn't just war, it's genocide. And now the galaxy knows. Still, silence. Then Arya broke in. We're live. Every world, every screen. He's broadcasting whether he wants to or not. And that's when the Emperor snapped. You self-righteous mongrel. You think truth matters to the frightened? You think facts can outshine fear? We rule because they need to be ruled. Eli stepped closer to the comm unit. Then let them hear it from you. I gave your kind mercy once, Zell growled. I won't make that mistake again. Good, Eli said, because we're not asking for mercy anymore. At that moment, the Nemesis fired, not at the city below, but at the orbital defense grid. One by one, its cannons lit up the sky with surgical precision. Energy arcs burst like shattered suns, disabling the Empire's last line of planetary control. Empire ships returned fire. The Nemesis shuddered. Shields cracked, hulls ruptured, systems flickered. Juno held her post, blood running down her temple. Structural integrity at 34%. We won't last another run. Good, Eli muttered. He turned to Seren, who had taken Dre's place in the co-pilot's chair. Trigger the failsafe. Let the ship finish the story. She hesitated, then hit the sequence. Deep within the Nemesis, the ship's AI, silent all this time, activated a final protocol. Its databanks began uploading to every free relay node in the galaxy, backup after backup. Not just files, but stories, testimonies, names. The history the Empire had stolen was now immortal. And then, Eli spoke into the open comms one last time. My name is Captain Eli Mercer. I am the last Terran war captain. This ship is not a weapon, it is a witness, and even if we fall, the truth won't. The screen cut to static. A final explosion burst across the black as the Nemesis rammed through the central command ship of the Empire's orbital fleet, taking both vessels out in a storm of fire and light. It wasn't just destruction. It was the closing sentence. Weeks later, across thousands of systems, statues fell, governors defected, and rebels rose. Thatcher, released from his programming with the death of his handler, now walked the stars as a living reminder of what the Empire had done, even to its own tools. Seren became a leader of the new historical movement. Arya? A voice of the Resistance, guiding the free net. And Juno Red, with scars both new and old, carried Dre's name into every dark system left to liberate. The Empire did not fall overnight, but it was dying. Because now, everywhere across the stars, people whispered a new story. The humans returned, not to conquer, not for revenge, but to remind us that silence is the most dangerous lie of all. And the galaxy remembered,